Here it says, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver addresses expansion, cup future, and NBA in Europe. It says Commissioner Silver also touches on cup viewership increases, Chris Paul's future, and the WNBA talks. Adam Silver is not concerned with this stuff anymore. Here it says the NBA plans to make a decision regarding domestic expansion in the coming year. Commissioner Adam Silver said Tuesday, offering the most definitive timeline since the league began exploring the possibility of moving from 30 to 32 teams.
Adam Silver just pulled the ultimate power move. And it's not the one anyone expected. The man who promised he'd step in personally to save the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, he's done, checked out, moved on. While the January 9th deadline looms just days away, Silver's talking about NBA expansion in Seattle, launching leagues in Europe, and basically anything except the dumpster fire that's about to consume the WNBA's biggest season ever. This isn't negotiation strategy. This is abandonment.
Now, Silver says WNBA talks are progressing. Now, remember, he said he was going to step in. Remember that part. Silver said he and NBA Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum are available to help the WNBA and its players strike a new labor deal if needed. Silver said he's optimistic a deal will get done. Okay. Now you're saying, okay, if they need me, I'm around. Like, no, you said you was going, months ago, you said you was going to make sure the deal got done because it was clear they did not want to negotiate with Kathy Engelbert. You said you was going to step in.
Let's get the timeline straight, because this matters. A few months back, Silver went on record saying he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum would personally intervene if needed. The WNBA players made it clear they didn't want to negotiate with Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. They wanted Silver. They trusted him. He said he'd be there. Then the NBA gambling investigation hit. Senators started calling meetings. Suddenly, the league that actually generates revenue needed his attention, and the WNBA, that became a problem for another day.
It's going to require compromise on both sides, and that is what Caitlin Clark said. But Adam Silver, you said you would insert yourself to get this thing done. It is January 6th. The deadline is January 9th. When are you stepping in, brother? Where are you? Where are you at? Let's take a look at this. As these ladies was talking about the situation where Caitlin Clark was saying people need to compromise. And ultimately, y'all are ruining the golden goose and the cash cow. All the publicity, all the fans, all the talk that Caitlin Clark brought to this league, you guys are just destroying it. You guys are destroying it. And you don't even get it.
Now, here's what Silver actually said this week. And pay attention to the language shift. Not, I'm at the negotiating table. Not, we're close to a deal. He said he's tracking things very closely and he's available to help if needed. That's corporate speak for I'm out. This is the same man who weeks ago promised direct involvement. Now it's conditional. Now it's if they need him. Brother, they need you. It's January 6th. The deadline is January 9th. Where exactly are you?
Situation where Caitlin Clark was saying people need to compromise. And ultimately, y'all are ruining the golden goose and the cash cow. All the publicity, all the fans, all the talk that Caitlin Clark brought to this league, you guys are just destroying it. You guys are destroying it. And you don't even get it, man. Y'all don't even get it.
Thing you just said, it's also important to remember she just finished her second year in the WNBA. She's going to be 24 in January. She's still very young. And there are a lot of players, a lot of young players I talked to and have talked to this year who...
And while the WNBA burns, Silver's giving detailed interviews about NBA expansion. He's not being vague about it either. Las Vegas and Seattle are the top markets. They're evaluating other cities. He wants to be sensitive about not teasing these markets because they've been talking about it for a while. You know what's actually being teased? The WNBA players who were promised leadership and got radio silence instead. They're the ones being strung along while Silver discusses arena capacity in European cities.
Remember what you were thinking about and doing at 23, 24 years old? Obviously, Caitlin Clark is massive and bigger than anything, but she is still 24 and, probably wanting to let others talk about the big issue.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Also understanding that Caitlin doesn't seem like the person that wants to be the center of attention all the time. She is, in the WNBA, but it's not like she commands that spotlight. It just happens naturally for her. It's not something that she tries to force. So I totally understand why. And also because this is confusing. There's a lot of legalese.
Here's the part that should terrify every WNBA stakeholder. Silver revealed that in late January, they'll have serious conversations with potential NBA expansion ownership groups. Late January. That's after the WNBA's CBA deadline, after the potential opt-out, after the chaos. He's already moved past it in his mind. The NBA is planning its next decade, while the WNBA can't figure out its next season, and the man who controls both leagues has made his priority crystal clear.
All of this, yeah, I know. It feels like forever. It feels like we've been talking about this our whole lives. But, if we've been talking about this every single week over the last several months, and we are still, trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? What does this word mean? What could the potential, the actions and reactions of this be? Of course, the players are as well, when their number one job and their number one prerogative is playing basketball. And that's one thing that Caitlin Clark continued to emphasize in her comments. She said, quote, "This is the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen." I don't disagree. I would agree with that. She goes on to say it's not something that can be messed up. We're going to fight for everything that we deserve.
But wait, there's more. Silver also announced plans for NBA games in Berlin and London next month. Orlando and Memphis are heading overseas for regular season matchups. Meanwhile, he's working with FIBA to potentially launch an entire European league. They're casting a very wide net and meeting with interested parties who'll explain their resources and vision. That's comprehensive strategic planning. That's active leadership. That's everything the WNBA isn't getting right now.
Are making the same kind of non-comments about it, who are just saying they're learning from the older generation. They're new to all this. I had one player tell me she did not realize that she was in a union until pretty recently. So it is important to remember what you were thinking about and doing at 23, 24 years old. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is massive and bigger than anything, but she is still 24 and, probably wanting to let others talk about the big issue.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Now let's talk about what Caitlin Clark said, because she's the only person in this entire situation who seems to understand what's actually at stake. She said this is the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen. She's right. The league just had its most watched season in 2 decades. Caitlin herself drove ratings that hadn't been seen since the league's founding years. And her message? We need to fight for what we deserve, but we also need to play basketball. Compromise. Both sides need to give something. That's leadership from a 23-year-old in her second season.
A lot of economic talk that, frankly, I'm not smart enough or informed enough to really understand the gravity of all of it. So I can imagine, if we're doing that, we as people who cover this sport and have been talking about these CBA negotiations, every week for the last 3+ months? Like, if we're having a hard time, grappling all of this, yeah, I know. It feels like forever. It feels like we've been talking about this our whole lives. But, if we've been talking about this every single week over the last several months, and we are still, trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? What does this word mean? What could the potential, the actions and reactions of this be? Of course, the players are.
Meanwhile, the actual leaders are MIA. Silver's moved on. Engelbert's. Apparently so toxic to the negotiation that players specifically requested she be removed from talks. The union leadership is dug in on positions that may or may not reflect economic reality, and the deadline is 72 hours away. This isn't how professional sports labor negotiations work. The NBA and NFL don't let this happen. When their CBAs come up, you see both sides in rooms for days. You see progress reports. You see urgency. The WNBA, silence, and side projects
are as well, when their number one job and their number one prerogative is playing basketball. And that's one thing that Caitlin Clark continued to emphasize in her comments. She said, quote, "This is the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen." I don't disagree. I would agree with that. She goes on to say it's not something that can be messed up. We're going to fight for everything that we deserve, but at the same time, we need to play basketball. And that's
And that's the thing that nobody, it's like Caitlin Clark is the only one thinking like that with that mindset. Everybody else is just trying to squeeze every nickel out that they can, and they don't even give a damn if it's a 2026 season, man. And it's a bunch of conflict of interest going on with Unrivaled and Project B. We got board members getting equity in all these other leagues. It's too much going on, man. And Adam Silver is checked out. He's focusing on NBA Europe and all of that stuff, bro. He's not thinking about this anymore. Couldn't be the furthest thing from his mind. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. This Keep the Vision.
Here's what makes this particularly insane. The WNBA just secured a new media rights deal that dramatically increases revenue. This should be the easiest negotiation in sports labor history. Both sides won. The pie got bigger. Now just divide it fairly and move on. Instead, we're watching a slow-motion car crash where nobody's touching the brakes. You've got board members with equity stakes in competing leagues like Unrivaled. You've got Project B launching as an alternative. You've got conflicts of interest everywhere and leadership nowhere. And the man who could cut through all of it with one phone call. He's talking about arena specifications in Las Vegas. Not for the WNBA Aces, for the potential NBA expansion team. That's where his head is. That's where the NBA's resources are going. The WNBA is an afterthought, and they're learning that lesson in real time. Think about what Silver actually accomplished with that interview. He shifted the entire narrative away from the CBA crisis. Sports media is now discussing NBA expansion timelines and European League possibilities. The WNBA's existential deadline got buried under more exciting NBA storylines. That might not have been intentional, but it's devastatingly effective. The pressure's off Silver because everyone's distracted by shinier objects. But the January 9th deadline doesn't care about distractions. If there's no deal by then, the players can opt out of the current CBA. That means the 2026 season is in jeopardy. Not might be, is. And we're not talking about a league that can afford disruption right now. This is a league that finally found mainstream relevance. Caitlin Clark brought casual fans. Angel Reese brought social media engagement. The rookie class brought storylines. All of that evaporates if there's no season. Silver knows this. He's not stupid. He's one of the smartest commissioners in professional sports, which means his absence is a choice. He's choosing to let this play out without his direct involvement. Maybe he thinks the pressure of the deadline will force both sides to compromise. Maybe he's frustrated with the WNBA's inability to negotiate like adults. Maybe he's genuinely more concerned about gambling investigations and expansion plans. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. The WNBA is on its own. And here's the thing about being on your own when you're not ready for it. You make mistakes. You overplay your hand. You let ego override strategy. The WNBA has never successfully navigated a contentious labor negotiation without NBA intervention. They've never had to. Silver and his predecessors always stepped in before things got critical. This time feels different. This time feels like the NBA is letting the WNBA learn a hard lesson about leverage and economic reality. Because let's be honest about what leverage actually exists here. The players can threaten to opt out. Then what? They sit out a season while the league that just got mainstream attention loses all momentum. They go play in Unrivaled or overseas while their domestic league collapses. That's not leverage. That's mutually assured destruction. The league needs the players, obviously, but the players need the league more than they seem to realize. The WNBA can't afford a work stoppage. The NBA could survive one. They've done it before. They'll do it again. But the WNBA, they're still building, still proving they belong in the conversation, still fighting for respect and resources. A missed season doesn't just cost money. It costs legitimacy. It costs the casual fans who finally started paying attention. It costs Caitlin Clark's prime years. It costs everything they've built over the past 12 months. So where does this leave us with 72 hours to go? With a commissioner who's checked out to focus on more profitable ventures. With players who may or may not understand the consequences of their negotiating position. With a union leadership that's either brilliant or delusional, depending on how this plays out. with conflicts of interest everywhere, with alternative leagues waiting in the wings, with the biggest star in the league begging both sides to compromise, and with absolutely no indication that anyone's listening. Adam Silver let the WNBA down. Whether he meant to or not doesn't matter. He promised involvement and delivered absence. He promised leadership and delivered corporate speak about being available if needed. The WNBA needed him weeks ago. They need him now. And he's talking about European basketball instead. That's not strategy. That's not tough love. That's abandonment. And if this CBA negotiation fails, if the 2026 season gets delayed or canceled, if all the momentum from Caitlin Clark's rookie year evaporates, Silver owns that failure. He had the power to prevent it and chose not to use it. So here's the question we need to be asking. Is Adam Silver's absence from these negotiations a calculated move to force both sides toward compromise? Or has he genuinely given up on the WNBA as a priority worth his personal attention? Because if it's the latter, if the NBA's commissioner has decided the Women's League isn't worth his time even during its most critical negotiation ever, what does that tell us about how the NBA actually views the WNBA? Not in press release, not in public statements about supporting women's basketball. In practice, when it matters, when leadership is actually required. The deadline is January 9th. That's 3 days from now. Either both sides find compromise, or we watch the WNBA's biggest opportunity in 25 years go up in flames. And Adam Silver will be in Europe talking about arena deals while it burns. Let me know in the comments if you think Silver's playing chess or if he's genuinely checked out, because right now it looks a lot more like abandonment than strategy. Make sure you subscribe for updates as this deadline approaches, because this situation is about to get very real, very fast.